I was at the pharmacy picking up my blood pressure medication when my phone rang. It was my son, Marcus. His voice had that clipped, impatient tone he used when he was busy with something more important than talking to his mother. "Mom, I need you to listen carefully because I don't have much time. Emma and I are flying to San Francisco tomorrow to meet with investors for my startup. I've already sold your downtown loft and the lake house. We also sold Dad's car. The money's been transferred to my business account. You'll need to move into a senior living facility by the end of the month. I've already looked into some affordable options. I'll email you the details. Gotta go." And he hung up. Just like that. 42 years of raising him, sacrificing for him, loving him unconditionally. And he discarded me like an outdated piece of software. I stood there in the fluorescent-lit pharmacy, holding my prescription bottle, surrounded by other elderly people picking up their medications. And for the first time since my husband Thomas died 3 years ago, I didn't cry. Instead, something cold and clear settled over me like a blanket of snow, because there was something my dear son didn't know, something his father had made absolutely sure Marcus would never discover until the right moment. My name is Diane Carter. I'm 68 years old. I'm a retired librarian who spent 35 years helping people find the information they needed. And until that phone call, I thought I knew my son. Thomas, my husband, had died 3 years ago from complications of diabetes. We'd been married for 43 years. He was a software engineer at Microsoft during the early days, back when Seattle was just beginning its transformation into a tech hub. We'd met at the University of Washington library where I worked. He was researching something for a project, and I helped him find an obscure technical manual. 6 months later, we were married. Marcus was born 2 years after that in 1982. He was our only child, and we poured everything we had into raising him. Thomas taught him to code when he was 8 years old. I read him every book in the children's section of the library where I worked. We saved for his college education, supported his dreams, celebrated his achievements, but somewhere along the way, Marcus changed. Or maybe he'd always been this way, and I'd been too blind to see it. It started when he married Emma 5 years ago. She was a marketing consultant who came from money, or at least she acted like she did. She wore designer clothes, drove a BMW, and talked constantly about building wealth and maximizing opportunities. At their wedding, she'd made a toast about how she and Marcus were going to be the power couple of the Seattle tech scene. I'd smiled and applauded along with everyone else. But Thomas had squeezed my hand under the table. Later that night, he'd said, "Diane, I don't trust that woman. There's something calculating in her eyes. Give her a chance," I told him. "She makes Marcus happy, does she? Or does Marcus just think she makes him happy?" Thomas had always been perceptive. It was one of the things I'd loved most about him. After Thomas died, Marcus had been attentive at first. He came to the funeral, gave a nice eulogy, helped me sort through some of Thomas's belongings. But then he started talking about my assets and my financial situation with an intensity that made me uncomfortable. "Mom, Dad must have had life insurance, right? And retirement savings? You need to be smart about managing this money." "I'm managing fine, Marcus." "But are you really? You're almost 70. You should think about downsizing, investing in something more liquid. That loft downtown is worth a fortune. And the lake house, nobody uses that anymore. I use it. Your father and I spent every summer there. That was when Dad was alive. It's just sitting empty now, Mom. That's not smart financial planning." The conversations became more frequent, more insistent. Emma would chime in with suggestions about senior living communities that offered amazing amenities and would really suit my lifestyle. They made it sound like a resort instead of what it really was, a place where old people went to wait to die. But I'd resisted. The loft was my home. Thomas and I had bought it in 1995 when downtown Seattle was being revitalized. We'd watched the neighborhood transform around us. The lake house had been our sanctuary, the place where we'd celebrated anniversaries and holidays, where Marcus had learned to swim and fish and appreciate the quiet beauty of the Pacific Northwest. I wasn't ready to give those up. Those places weren't just real estate. They were memories, pieces of the life Thomas and I had built together. But apparently, Marcus had made the decision for me. The pharmacist called my name, pulling me back to the present. "Mrs. Carter, your prescription is ready." I paid for my medication and walked slowly to the bus stop. I no longer had a car, according to Marcus. But as I waited for the bus, I found myself smiling. Because 3 years ago, 2 weeks before Thomas died, he'd done something very specific. He'd handed me a locked metal box. "Diane, put this in the back of your closet. Don't open it until you absolutely need to. You'll know when that time comes." "What's in it?" I'd asked. "Our future. Your security. And if Marcus ever shows his true colors, the truth he needs to learn." I'd put the box away, and in the chaos and grief of Thomas's death and the years that followed, I'd almost forgotten about it. But now, standing at that bus stop, I remembered. The time had come. When I got home to the loft that was apparently no longer mine, I went straight to my bedroom closet. Behind boxes of old photographs and Thomas's winter coats that I couldn't bear to give away, I found the metal box. It was heavier than I remembered. My hands shook as I pulled it out and sat on the bed. There was a combination lock on it. Thomas had always been sentimental about numbers. I tried our wedding anniversary, 06 to 15, 1979. The lock clicked open. Inside were documents. So many documents. Legal papers, property deeds, stock certificates, and a thick envelope with my name written on it in Thomas's familiar handwriting. I opened the envelope first. Inside was a letter, and as I read his words, tears finally came. "My dearest Diane, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and it also means Marcus has done something that forced you to open this box. I'm sorry, my love. I hoped I was wrong about our son, hoped that he would prove to be the man we tried to raise him to be. But I had to prepare for the possibility that he wouldn't. Over the years, I made investments you didn't know about. Those stock options from Microsoft that I earned in the early days, I never cashed them all in. I held on to them, and they've grown considerably. I also invested in Amazon when it was just starting, in 1997. Remember when I told you I was helping that young man Jeff Bezos with some technical consulting? He paid me partly in stock. I also bought properties. The building where Marcus and Emma's condo is located, I own it. Or rather, you own it now. It's held in a trust with you as the sole beneficiary. There are 4 other properties as well, all generating rental income. You are not poor, Diane. You are wealthy. Very wealthy. But I kept this secret because I saw how Marcus changed when he started working in tech, how he began measuring everything in terms of money and status. I didn't want him to know about our real financial situation because I wanted him to love us for who we were, not for what we had. If he's done something cruel enough to make you open this box, then he's failed the test. Now it's your turn to teach him what I couldn't. That character matters more than bank accounts. That family is more valuable than startups. And that some lessons can only be learned through loss. I trust you, my love. You've always been the wiser one, the more patient one. Do what you think is right. But know that you have all the resources you need to protect yourself and, if you choose, to help Marcus learn what he needs to learn. All my love, always and forever. Thomas. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Then I looked through the other documents. Thomas hadn't been exaggerating. The stock certificates alone were worth millions. The Microsoft stocks had split multiple times over the years. The Amazon investment had turned $50,000 into something worth over $3 million. The property deeds showed I owned not just the building where Marcus lived, but also a small office building in Capitol Hill, a duplex in Fremont, and 2 houses in Ballard that were currently being rented out. There were also bank statements for accounts I'd never known existed. Thomas had been putting money away for decades, and it had grown into a substantial sum. All told, according to a financial summary dated just days before Thomas's death, I was worth approximately $8.7 million. I sat on my bed, surrounded by the evidence of my husband's love and foresight, and I cried. But these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude, and yes, tears of determination. Marcus thought he'd left me with nothing. He thought he could take my home, my car, my independence, and I'd simply accept it because I was old and vulnerable. He'd underestimated his mother the way he'd underestimated his father. That night, I barely slept. I kept getting up to look at the documents, to make sure I hadn't dreamed them. At 3 a.m., I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea and Thomas's letter, reading his words over and over. Do what you think is right, he'd written. What was right? Calling Marcus immediately and telling him about the money? Taking back my properties legally and cutting him out of my life? Or was there another way, a way that would actually teach him the lesson Thomas had wanted him to learn? By dawn, I had a plan. The next morning, I called Marcus. Emma answered his phone. "Oh, hi, Diane. Marcus is in a meeting with the investors. This is such an exciting time for us. The startup is going to be huge. I'm sure it is, Emma. I just wanted to let you both know that I understand about the house and the car. I know you need the money for the business. There was a pause. She'd clearly expected me to fight. Oh, well, that's very understanding of you. I'm moving into one of those senior living places you mentioned. I think it might actually be nice to have less responsibility. That's great, Diane. Really great. Marcus will be so relieved. He was worried you'd be difficult about this. Difficult. As if wanting to keep my home was being difficult. Could you tell him I'll be out of the loft by the end of the month? Absolutely. And Diane, we really appreciate your support. Once the startup takes off, we'll definitely make sure you're taken care of. Sure they would. After I hung up, I called the law firm Thomas had used for his estate planning. I asked to speak with his attorney, Janet Morrison. She'd been at Thomas's funeral, had expressed her condolences, and had told me to call if I ever needed anything. Well, now I needed her. Mrs. Carter, it's good to hear from you. How can I help? I found something. Documents from Thomas. I think we need to meet. There was a brief silence. Then, did you open the box? You knew about it? Thomas consulted with me before he set everything up. Yes, I know about it. Can you come to my office today? 2 hours later, I was sitting in Janet's downtown office, the documents spread across her conference table. She reviewed everything carefully, occasionally making notes. Your husband was a very intelligent man, Mrs. Carter. He set this up perfectly. Everything is legitimate. All the transfers were done properly, and you are indeed the sole owner of all these assets. Including the building where Marcus lives? Especially that building. Your son's condo is on the 15th floor, correct? Yes. He's been living there for 3 years, paying rent to what he thinks is a corporate landlord. He has no idea his father bought the building in 2018 and put it in your name. I allowed myself a small smile. And the loft he thinks he sold? Janet's expression turned grim. That's more complicated. Let me make some calls. She stepped out of the room, and I sat there looking at the Seattle skyline through her office windows. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably celebrating with his investors, thinking he'd successfully liquidated his mother's assets to fund his dream. Janet returned 20 minutes later. I spoke with the title company. The sale of your loft hasn't been completed yet. Your son had a power of attorney that you signed 3 years ago, right after your husband's death. Do you remember signing it? I did, vaguely. Marcus had brought me papers, said they were to help manage Thomas's estate and make things easier during the probate process. I'd been so grief-stricken, I'd signed without really reading. That power of attorney doesn't actually give him the right to sell your primary residence without your explicit consent. The sale is fraudulent. We can void it. How long will that take? I can have it done by the end of the week. The buyers will get their money back. No harm done to them. Good. I don't want innocent people to suffer for Marcus's actions. What about the car? That one's trickier. The car was in both your and Thomas's names, and after his death, it should have been transferred solely to you. But if Marcus had that power of attorney and used it to sell the car, it might be harder to recover. I don't care about the car, I said. Thomas loved that car, but I never really enjoyed driving it. What I care about is teaching Marcus a lesson. Janet leaned back in her chair, studying me. What kind of lesson? The kind his father wanted him to learn. That character matters. That you can't treat people, especially your own mother, as disposable assets to be liquidated when convenient. What do you have in mind? I want to void the sale of the loft, but I don't want Marcus to know immediately. Can we do that quietly? Yes. And I want to maintain control of all my properties, especially the building where Marcus lives. That's already done. You've always had control. You just didn't know it. Perfect. Then here's what I'd like to do. I spent the next 2 hours with Janet, laying out my plan. She listened carefully, occasionally asking questions or suggesting modifications. By the time we were finished, we had a strategy that Thomas would have approved of. It wasn't revenge. It was education. Over the next 2 weeks, I quietly put everything in order. Janet handled the legal aspects, voiding the sale of my loft and securing my control over all the properties. I met with a financial advisor who helped me understand the full extent of my holdings and set up systems to manage them properly. I also started packing, but not because I was actually moving. I needed Marcus to believe I was going along with his plan. I boxed up books and kitchen items, took photos off the walls, and made the loft look like someone preparing to leave. My neighbor, Helen, who'd lived in the building for 20 years, came over one afternoon to help me pack. Diane, I can't believe Marcus is making you move. That boy should be ashamed of himself. People make their own choices, Helen, but still. After everything you and Thomas did for him, she was wrapping wine glasses in newspaper. Where are you going to live? I'm not entirely sure yet. But don't worry about me. I'll be fine. You're taking this remarkably well. If she only knew. Marcus called me twice during those 2 weeks. The first time was to check on my progress with moving. How's the packing going, Mom? Slowly but surely. There's a lot to sort through. Yeah, well, the new owners want to move in by the 1st. So you need to be out by then. I understand. And Mom? About the senior living place. I sent you those links. Have you chosen one? I'm still looking at options. Well, don't take too long. Emma and I are really busy with the startup, and we can't help you move. You'll need to hire movers yourself, of course. I wouldn't want to inconvenience you. He completely missed the sarcasm in my voice. The second call came 3 days before the supposed move-out date. This time, Emma was on the line with him. Diane, we have the most amazing news. Emma's voice was shrill with excitement. The investors loved Marcus's pitch. They're putting in $2 million. That's wonderful. It really is. And Diane, once the company goes public, you'll be so proud. This is going to change our lives. Our lives. Not my life. Theirs. Marcus, I said, can I ask you something? Sure, Mom. What? Do you remember the summer you turned 12? When we went to the lake house and you fell out of the boat? There was a pause. Yeah. Why? Your father jumped in fully clothed to save you. He didn't hesitate. He didn't think about his phone in his pocket or his wallet or his watch. He just jumped in because you were his son and you needed him. Okay, Mom, that's a nice memory, but I really have to go. We're celebrating with the investors tonight. Of course. Don't let me keep you. After he hung up, I sat there for a long moment, remembering that day. Thomas had jumped in without thinking, and Marcus had clung to him, terrified and crying. Afterward, Marcus had said, "You saved my life, Dad." And Thomas had said, "That's what parents do. We're always there for our children." But it appeared that didn't work both ways. The day before I was supposed to move out, Janet called me. "Everything is in place, Diane. The loft sale has been officially voided. The buyers have been refunded, and they've been told there was an issue with the title that made the sale invalid. They're not happy, but they accepted it. And Marcus doesn't know. Marcus has no idea. As far as he's concerned, the sale went through and the money is in his account." But the money is in his account? Yes. The buyers paid, and before we voided the sale, the funds were transferred according to the original agreement. Technically, Marcus now has money he's not entitled to. He's going to have to return it. When will he find out? I'm sending him a letter tomorrow, along with a formal notice that the sale was fraudulent and that he needs to return the funds within 30 days or face legal action. Perfect. Diane, are you sure you want to do this? Marcus is your son. This is going to destroy your relationship with him. Janet, my son sold my home without my permission. He took my car. He was planning to put me in a senior living facility and wash his hands of me. He destroyed our relationship the moment he made that phone call at the pharmacy. I'm just making sure he understands what he lost. The next morning, moving day, I was sitting in my loft drinking coffee when there was a knock at the door. It was the building manager, Tom, who'd worked there for 15 years. "Mrs. Carter, I'm so sorry about all this. I hate to do this, but I need to give you this." He handed me an envelope. "It's the official notice to vacate. The new owners are scheduled to do a walkthrough this afternoon." "Thank you, Tom. I understand. You're just doing your job." He looked around at the packed boxes. "Where are you going?" "Oh, I'll figure something out. Don't worry about me." After he left, I opened the envelope and read the official notice. It was signed by the building management company, informing me that my lease had been terminated due to the sale of the unit, and that I needed to be out by 6 p.m. that day. I looked around at the loft that had been my home for 28 years. The exposed brick walls that Thomas and I had painted white together. The kitchen where we'd cooked thousands of meals. The window seat where I'd read countless books while looking out at the Seattle skyline. This place held so many memories. But memories didn't live in walls and windows. They lived in hearts. At 5:45 p.m., I was standing in the empty loft, waiting. Tom had told me the new owners were coming at 6 p.m. for their final walkthrough before moving in. I wanted to be there when they arrived. At exactly 6 p.m., there was a knock. I opened the door to find a young couple, probably in their early 30s, looking excited and nervous. "Hi," the woman said. "I'm Ashley, and this is my husband Brandon. We're the new owners. Are you Mrs. Carter?" "I am." "Please come in." They stepped into the empty loft, looking around with the kind of wonder that people have when they're buying their first real home. "This place is amazing," Brandon said. "We've been saving for 5 years to afford something like this." "It's a wonderful home," I said. "I've been very happy here." "The agent said you were moving to a senior community?" Ashley asked gently. "Actually, there's been a change of plans. I'm not moving after all." They looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean the sale of this loft was fraudulent. It's been voided. You've already been refunded your money. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience, but this is still my home." Brandon's face went red. "What? But we signed papers. We've hired movers. We gave notice on our rental." "I know, and I'm truly sorry. The person who sold you this loft didn't have the legal right to do so. The title company should have contacted you yesterday." Ashley pulled out her phone, scrolling frantically. "Oh my God, there is an email." "Brandon, there's an email from the title company. I didn't see it because it went to spam." They spent the next 5 minutes reading the email, their excitement turning to confusion, then to anger. "This is fraud," Brandon said. "We're going to sue whoever did this." "That would be my son," I said quietly. "And yes, it was fraud. My attorney is already handling it. Again, I'm very sorry you got caught up in this. But you have your money back, and you'll find another home." They left, angry and confused, and I couldn't blame them. They were innocent victims of Marcus's greed. I stood in my empty loft, surrounded by boxes I no longer needed to unpack, and I called Janet. "It's done. The new owners just left. What happens now?" "Now we wait. Marcus should receive my letter tomorrow morning. And Diane, brace yourself. When he realizes what's happened, he's going to call you. It won't be pleasant, I know. I'm ready." That night, I unpacked enough boxes to make my bed and brew a pot of tea. I sat by the window, looking out at the city lights, and I thought about Thomas. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," I whispered to the night. "I hope this is what you wanted." The city lights twinkled back at me, and I imagined Thomas's voice. "Trust yourself. Diane, you've always known what's right." The next morning, my phone started ringing at 8:30 a.m. It was Marcus. I let it ring. He called 3 more times before 9 a.m., each call going to voicemail. Then the text started coming. "Mom, call me immediately." "Mom, what the hell is going on?" "Mom, I just got a letter from some lawyer saying the sale was fraudulent." "Call me now. I swear to God, if you're behind this, we're going to have a serious problem." I waited until noon to call him back. When he answered, he was shouting before I could even say hello. "What did you do, Mom?" "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything, Marcus. You're the one who sold my home without my permission." "I had power of attorney." "A power of attorney that didn't give you the right to sell my primary residence without my explicit consent. You committed fraud, Marcus. You stole from me." "Stole? I was trying to help you. That money was going to fund my startup, and when it succeeded, you would have benefited too." "I don't remember being asked if I wanted to invest in your startup, Marcus. I remember being told I was being evicted from my own home." There was a heavy breathing on the other end of the line. Then Emma's voice in the background. "Let me talk to her." "Mrs. Carter, this is Emma. I think there's been a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding." "Emma, my son tried to steal my home and my car. That's not a misunderstanding. That's a crime, but we need that money. We've already promised it to the investors. Marcus's startup is going to revolutionize social media marketing. This could be the next Facebook. Then I suggest you find another way to fund it. Return the money you received from the fraudulent sale, or I'll have no choice but to pursue legal action." "You're being incredibly selfish," Emma hissed. "You're an old woman living alone in a huge loft. You don't need all that space. We're trying to build something important, and I'm trying to keep the home I've lived in for 28 years. The home your husband had no right to sell." I hung up on her. The phone immediately started ringing again, but I turned it off. I'd said what I needed to say. Over the next week, Marcus tried everything. He sent emails. He showed up at my building, but Tom didn't let him up without my permission, and I didn't give it. He sent Emma to try to guilt me. He even had his lawyer call my lawyer, but Janet shut that down immediately. "Mrs. Carter is the victim here," Janet told his lawyer. Your client committed fraud. If he doesn't return the money within 30 days, we will be filing criminal charges. On the 15th day after I'd voided the sale, Marcus finally returned the money. Janet called me with the news. The funds have been transferred back into the escrow account. Your son is now officially not a thief, just someone who attempted theft. And the startup? According to my sources, the investors are getting nervous. They've heard rumors about the fraudulent sale, and they're concerned about Marcus's character. There's talk they might pull their funding. Good. Diane, are you sure you don't want to just let this go? You've made your point. He returned the money. He returned the money because he had no choice, not because he understood what he did wrong. The lesson isn't finished yet. That night I received an email from Marcus. It was long, rambling, and full of justifications for his actions. He claimed he'd been under stress from the startup pressure. He said Emma had convinced him that selling my properties was the best solution for everyone. He never once actually apologized or acknowledged that what he did was wrong. At the end of the email, he wrote, Mom, I'm in serious financial trouble now. The investors are pulling out because of this scandal you created. I'm probably going to lose everything. I hope you're happy. The scandal I created. I didn't respond to the email. 2 weeks later, on a rainy Thursday afternoon, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, Marcus was standing there, and I barely recognized him. He'd lost weight, his expensive clothes looked rumpled, and there were dark circles under his eyes. Mom, can I come in? I hesitated, then stepped aside. He walked into the loft, looking around at the space he'd tried to sell out from under me. It looks exactly the same, he said. Why wouldn't it? It's my home. He sat down heavily on the couch. The investors pulled out completely. All $2 million. The startup is dead. Emma left me yesterday. She said she can't be with someone who has no financial prospects. She's already seeing some guy who works at Amazon. I should have felt sympathy. He was my son after all, and he was clearly suffering. But I kept hearing his voice on that phone call from the pharmacy. I've already sold your loft and the lake house. You'll need to move into a senior living facility. I'm sorry your startup didn't work out, I said carefully. Are you? You're the one who destroyed it. If you'd just let me have that money, everything would have been fine. Marcus, do you understand what you did to me? I was trying to help both of us. If the startup had succeeded, we both would have been rich. I don't need your startup to be rich, Marcus. He looked at me blankly. What do you mean? This was the moment. I got up, went to my bedroom, and returned with Thomas's metal box. I set it on the coffee table in front of Marcus. Your father left me this. Open it. Marcus opened the box and started reading through the documents. I watched his face go through a series of transformations. Confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, a kind of horrified understanding. This says you own the building I live in? Yes. And that you have millions in stocks and other properties? Yes. All this time. You were rich and you never told me? Your father kept it secret for a reason, Marcus. He wanted to see what kind of man you'd become. Whether you'd love us for who we were or for what we had. Marcus's face flushed red. So this was all a test? You let me fail on purpose? No. Your father gave you every opportunity to be a good person. You failed that test all on your own. I don't believe this. He was standing now, pacing. You watched me struggle, watched my marriage fall apart, watched my business fail, and you could have helped me at any time. I watched you try to steal my home, Marcus. I watched you plan to put your mother in a senior facility like I was a piece of furniture you didn't need anymore. Should I have rewarded that behavior by giving you money? I'm your son, and you treated me like I was disposable. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, You know what? Emma was right. You are selfish. You're a selfish old woman who cares more about teaching lessons than helping her own child. Get out of my house, Marcus. Gladly. And don't expect me to come back. You want to be alone with your precious money and your precious principles? Fine, be alone. He slammed the door on his way out. I stood there in the sudden silence, my hands shaking, tears threatening to fall. But I didn't cry. Not yet. Over the next month, I heard nothing from Marcus. Through Helen, who somehow knew everything that happened in Seattle's tech community, I learned that he'd taken a regular job at a software company, a significant step down from his entrepreneurial dreams. He'd moved out of his expensive condo into a studio apartment in a less fashionable neighborhood. He's driving for Uber on weekends to make ends meet, Helen told me over coffee one morning. I saw him picking up passengers downtown. He looked miserable. I felt a pang in my chest, but I pushed it aside. This was what Thomas had wanted, wasn't it? For Marcus to learn the value of hard work, to understand that character mattered more than status. But late at night, alone in my loft, I wondered if I'd gone too far. Marcus was my son, my only child. Was teaching him a lesson worth losing him forever? I called Janet for advice. You did what you needed to do, Diane. He stole from you. He tried to make you homeless. Those aren't the actions of someone who loves their parent. But he's struggling now. Really struggling. Because he's facing the natural consequences of his actions. That's not your fault, isn't it? I could help him. I have the resources. Of course you could. The question is whether you should. Has he learned anything? Has he shown any genuine remorse? That was the question, wasn't it? Marcus had been angry when I revealed the truth about the money, but had he been remorseful? Had he truly understood what he'd done wrong? I didn't know. 2 months after Marcus's angry visit, I received a handwritten letter in the mail. The return address was his studio apartment. The handwriting was his, but messier than usual, as if written quickly or emotionally. Dear Mom, I've started this letter a dozen times and thrown it away every time. I don't know what to say or how to say it, but I need to try. I've been working at TechCorp for 2 months now. It's entry-level work, stuff I did fresh out of college, and it's humbling. On weekends, I drive for Uber and deliver food for DoorDash. Last week, I delivered Chinese food to my old condo building. The doorman didn't even recognize me. That's how far I've fallen. But the funny thing is, I'm learning things I should have learned years ago. When you're driving people around at 2 a.m. because you need the money for rent, you start to understand what real work is. When you're delivering food to people in much worse situations than yours, you start to gain perspective. Last night, I picked up an elderly woman from a doctor's appointment. She reminded me of you. She was probably in her 70s, and she was taking the bus home until she saw it was raining and decided to splurge on an Uber. We talked during the drive, and she told me about her son, who lives in California and calls her once a month if she's lucky. She said, "The hardest part about getting old isn't the aching joints or the medical bills. It's when your children forget that you're still a person with feelings and dreams and fears. They see you as this obligation, this problem to be managed." I had to pull over after I dropped her off because I started crying, really crying for the first time since Dad died. Mom, I see now what I did to you. I didn't just try to sell your home. I tried to erase you, to reduce your entire life to a balance sheet where you were a liability instead of a person. I treated you exactly how that woman's son treats her, like an obligation instead of a mother who sacrificed everything for me. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I can forgive myself, but I needed you to know that I finally understand. Dad was right to test me, and I failed spectacularly. I failed as a son, as a person, and as the man he tried to raise me to be. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking for help with my bills or my career or anything else. I'm just asking if someday maybe we could have coffee. Not to talk about the past or about the money or about what I did. Just to talk, the way we used to when I was a kid, and you'd pick me up from school and we'd stop at that cafe near the library. I miss you, Mom. Not your money, not your properties, not what you could do for me. Just you. Love, Marcus. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. This was what I'd been waiting for. Not an apology forced by circumstances, but genuine understanding. Not regret about losing the money, but remorse about losing the relationship. I called Marcus that evening. He answered on the first ring. "Mom?" "Hi, sweetheart. I got your letter." There was a long pause. Then quietly, "I meant every word." "I know you did. How's Saturday at 2 p.m.? We could meet at that cafe you mentioned, the one by the library." "Really?" "Really." On Saturday, I arrived at the cafe early. It was the same place where I'd taken Marcus after school for years, back when he was young, and we'd talk about his day over hot chocolate and cookies. The cafe had changed ownership twice since then, but it still had the same warm, cozy atmosphere. Marcus arrived 5 minutes late, looking nervous. He'd dressed nicely, but his clothes were clearly not the designer brands he used to wear. He'd gotten a haircut and shaved, making an effort. "Hi, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." "Sit down. We ordered coffee, and for a few minutes there was awkward silence. Then Marcus spoke. "I've been seeing a therapist. The company offers it as part of the benefits package. I thought it was silly at first, but it's actually been helpful." "That's good. She's been helping me understand some things about myself, about how I've been measuring my worth by my bank account instead of by my character, about how I've been chasing status instead of substance. Your father would be proud that you're doing that work. I don't know if he would be. I wasted so much time, Mom. I'm 42 years old, and I'm just now learning lessons I should have learned at 25. Better late than never." He smiled sadly. "That's what the therapist says." We talked for 2 hours. Really talked, in a way we hadn't in years. Marcus told me about his job, about the people he met driving for Uber, about how he'd started volunteering at a community center teaching coding to underprivileged kids. "It's not glamorous," he said, "and it doesn't pay anything, but it feels more meaningful than any of my startup ideas ever did. Meaning is more valuable than money." "Marcus, I'm starting to understand that." As we were getting ready to leave, he said, "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Of course. The building I used to live in, the one you own. Do you make good money from it?" I tensed, wondering if we were back to talking about money. But then he continued, "Because I was thinking, with all the tech workers in Seattle, rent must be astronomical. There must be a lot of working-class people who can't afford to live in decent places. What if you offered some units at reduced rent to teachers or social workers or people like that?" It wasn't a request for money. It was a suggestion about how to use money meaningfully. "That's a wonderful idea, Marcus." "Really? Really. In fact, why don't we talk about it more over dinner next week? You could help me set something up." His face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not with greed or ambition, but with genuine enthusiasm for doing something good. "I'd love that." "Mom, I'd really love that." We parted ways with a hug, a real one, not the perfunctory embraces we'd been giving each other for years. And as I watched him walk away, I felt Thomas's presence, as if he were standing beside me, nodding in approval. "He's learning," I whispered. "Finally, he's learning." Over the next 6 months, Marcus and I rebuilt our relationship slowly, carefully. We met for coffee every Saturday. He helped me set up a program to offer affordable housing to teachers, social workers, and nonprofit employees in the building he used to live in. He never asked for money, never hinted that he needed help, even though I knew he was still struggling financially. He continued driving for Uber and delivering food, and he told me stories about the people he met. There was the single mother working 3 jobs to support her kids, the veteran struggling with PTSD, the elderly man whose children never visited. "Every time I want to feel sorry for myself," Marcus said one Saturday, "I remember these people and realize how lucky I am. I have my health, I have skills, I have a mother who still talks to me even after what I did." He'd also started dating someone new, a woman named Rachel, who worked as a nurse at Seattle Children's Hospital. She was nothing like Emma. Where Emma had been all designer clothes and status-seeking, Rachel was genuine and kind. "She knows about everything," Marcus told me. "About the startup, about what I did to you, all of it. And she still wants to be with me. That's because she sees who you are now, not who you were." I hope so. "I'm trying to be better, Mom. Every day, I'm trying." One evening, 9 months after that first coffee meeting, Marcus came to my loft for dinner. It was the first time he'd been back since the angry confrontation after the voided sale. He looked around, seeing the space differently now. "This is a beautiful home, Mom. I can't believe I tried to take it from you." "You were lost, Marcus. But you found your way back." During dinner, he told me about a new opportunity at work. They're promoting me to senior developer. It comes with a significant raise. I'll finally be able to stop driving for Uber. Are you going to? He thought about it. Maybe just cut back. I've met some amazing people through that work. It's taught me more about life than any startup ever could. After dinner, we sat on the couch with coffee, and Marcus said, "Mom, can I ask you something?" "Always. Why didn't you tell me about the money sooner?" "After I sent that letter, after we started rebuilding." "Why keep it secret?" "Because I needed to know you loved me for the right reasons. That our relationship wasn't about what I could give you, but about who we are to each other." He nodded slowly. "I understand. And Mom? I don't want your money. I don't want to inherit the properties or the stocks or any of it." "Marcus, Let me finish. I want you to use it all for good. Set up scholarships, create affordable housing programs, help people the way you've helped those teachers in your building. And when you're gone, donate whatever's left to charity. I don't deserve it, and more importantly, I don't need it. Tears filled my eyes. Your father would be so proud of you. I hope so. I'm trying to become the man he believed I could be. We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Marcus said, "Tell me about Dad. Tell me about when you two first met." So I did. I told him about Thomas walking into the library looking for that technical manual, about our first date at a seafood restaurant on the pier, about how Thomas had proposed to me at the lake house, getting down on one knee in the sand while the sun set over the water. He sounds like he was a really good man. He was the best man I ever knew. And Marcus, you're becoming more like him every day. 2 years after that phone call at the pharmacy, my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. But more importantly, so had Marcus's. He was now the director of technology at his company, a position he'd earned through genuine hard work and dedication. He'd proposed to Rachel, and they were planning a small, intimate wedding at the lake house, the same place where Thomas had proposed to me decades ago. "Mom," Marcus had said when he told me about the proposal, "I want to get married at the lake house because that's where I learned what real love looks like. Watching you and Dad there every summer, seeing how you treated each other with respect and kindness, that's what I want with Rachel." The lake house. I'd never told Marcus that he'd tried to sell that too, along with the loft. I'd gotten it back quietly, just as I had the loft, but I'd never mentioned it to him. Some lessons didn't need to be rehashed. The affordable housing program Marcus had helped me establish had grown beyond that single building. We'd now converted 3 of my properties into mixed-income housing, offering reduced rent to essential workers. Marcus volunteered there every weekend, teaching coding classes to kids from low-income families. "This is what Dad's money should be used for," he'd told me. "Not funding someone's ego or lifestyle, but actually helping people build better lives." I'd also established a scholarship fund in Thomas's name at the University of Washington, focusing on first-generation college students studying computer science. The first recipients would be announced next month, and Marcus was on the selection committee. But perhaps the most significant change was in how Marcus and I related to each other. We talked on the phone several times a week, not because either of us needed anything, but simply because we enjoyed each other's company. He'd started asking me about my life, my interests, my plans, treating me like a person rather than an obligation. One Saturday, about a month before his wedding, Marcus came to the loft with Rachel. She'd been there several times before, but this visit felt different, more purposeful. "Mom," Marcus said after we'd settled in the living room with coffee, "Rachel and I have been talking, and we have a proposal for you." "What kind of proposal?" Rachel spoke up. She was a petite woman with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. "Mrs. Carter, Marcus has told me everything about what happened 2 years ago. How he tried to sell your home, how his father left you that box, how you taught him such an important lesson." "That's all in the past," I said carefully. "I know. But here's the thing. I work with children who are very sick, and I see their families every day. I see how illness and crisis brings out either the best or the worst in people. And I've learned that the families who survive are the ones who learn to forgive and rebuild. I've forgiven Marcus. I know you have. But Marcus hasn't entirely forgiven himself. And there's something he needs to say to you. Something we both think is important." Marcus took a deep breath. "Mom, I want to formally apologize for what I did. Not just the selling your house part, but the years before that. The way I treated you after Dad died. The way I saw you as a burden instead of a person. The way I measured everything, including our relationship, in terms of what I could get out of it. Marcus, you've already apologized. Please, let me finish. I need to say this properly." He pulled out a piece of paper. "I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I said it right." He began reading. "Mom, for years after Dad died, I saw you as a problem to solve. You were alone, you were aging, and in my mind that made you a liability. I thought the mature thing to do was to manage your affairs, to make decisions for you, to essentially treat you like a child who couldn't take care of herself." His voice cracked. "But the truth is, you never needed me to manage you. You're one of the strongest, most capable people I know. You worked for 35 years. You and Dad built a life together through hard work and sacrifice. You raised me, even though I clearly didn't deserve the effort you put in." Rachel put her hand on his shoulder. Supporting him, Marcus continued, "When I tried to sell your home, I told myself I was doing it for both of us, that the startup would benefit everyone. But that was a lie. I was doing it for myself, for my ego, because I wanted to be the next big tech success story. I was willing to sacrifice your security, your home, your dignity, all for my ambition." Tears were streaming down his face now. Dad saw this in me before I saw it in myself. That's why he set up that test. And I failed it spectacularly. But you, Mom, you gave me a second chance. You let me fall, let me hit bottom, and then you waited to see if I'd learn anything from it. Marcus, I'm almost done. I just need you to know that I understand now. I understand that being a good son isn't about being successful or rich or impressive. It's about being there. It's about respect. It's about treating your parent like the valuable human being they are, not like a problem to be managed or an asset to be liquidated. He folded the paper and looked directly at me. "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm deeply, genuinely sorry for every moment I made you feel less than the incredible woman you are. And I promise you, for the rest of your life, I will never make you feel that way again." I was crying now, too. "Oh, sweetheart, come here." He came to me, and I held him the way I used to when he was a small boy who'd scraped his knee or had a nightmare. Except now, he was a grown man who'd faced the nightmare of his own character flaws and had come out better for it. "I forgive you," I whispered, "completely and totally." Rachel was crying too, and we all sat there for a moment, letting the emotion wash over us. Finally, Rachel spoke. "There's one more thing. Marcus and I have been talking about our future, about the life we want to build together, and we want you to be a real part of it, not as an obligation, but as family we choose." "I'd like that very much." "We're thinking of buying a house," Marcus said. "Something with a separate space, maybe a mother-in-law suite or a guest house, where you could live if you ever wanted to. Not because we think you need to be taken care of, but because we want you close. We want our future kids to grow up knowing their grandmother, really knowing her, not just seeing her on holidays." It was everything I'd ever wanted, offered freely without expectation or obligation. "That sounds wonderful," I said. "But I'm very happy here in the loft." "We know. And that's fine too. The invitation is open whenever you want it. For holidays, for weekends, or if you ever decide you want to change. No pressure." That night, after they left, I sat by the window looking out at Seattle's skyline, and I felt Thomas's presence more strongly than I had in years. "We did it," I whispered. "He's finally the man you hoped he'd be." The wedding took place on a perfect September afternoon at the lake house. The ceremony was small, just 30 people, mostly close friends and family. Rachel's parents were there, warm and welcoming people who treated me like family from the moment we met. Marcus had asked if he could say something before the ceremony began, something he needed to share with everyone present. I had no idea what he was planning. He stood up in front of the gathered guests, Rachel beside him, and said, "Before we begin, I need to share something important. Most of you know that my father passed away 3 years ago. What you might not know is that before he died, he taught me the most important lesson of my life, though it took me a long time to understand it." He looked at me. "My father was a wise man who understood that real wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or stock portfolios. It's measured in character, in how we treat the people we love, in whether we choose integrity over convenience." Marcus told the whole story, not sparing himself, not making excuses, laying bare his failures and how he'd tried to steal from his own mother. Some of the guests gasped. Others looked uncomfortable. Rachel's mother reached over and squeezed my hand. "I'm sharing this," Marcus continued, "because I want everyone here to understand what real love looks like. Real love is what my mother showed me when she let me fail, when she let me face the consequences of my actions, and then when she gave me the chance to learn and grow and become better." He turned to Rachel. "And real love is what you showed me when I told you this story and you didn't run away. When you saw the worst parts of me and decided I was worth the risk anyway." Then he looked back at me. "Mom, would you come up here for a moment?" I walked to where he stood, unsure of what was happening. Marcus pulled out a small box. "When Dad died, you gave me his watch. Do you remember?" I nodded. It had been Thomas's favorite watch, worn every day for 20 years. "I sold it," Marcus said quietly. When I was desperate for money for the startup, I sold it for $2,000. It was one of many shameful things I did during that time. I hadn't known this. The pain of it hit me fresh. I spent the last year tracking it down. I contacted every pawn shop, every collector, every place I could think of. And last month I found it. I paid $5,000 to get it back, 5 times what I sold it for, but it was worth every penny. He opened the box. There was Thomas's watch, the scratched silver case I remembered so well. Mom, I can never give you back the time I wasted or erase the hurt I caused. But I can give you this, and I can promise you that the man who sold this watch no longer exists. The man standing in front of you now understands that some things are priceless, and family is at the top of that list. I took the watch, holding it like the precious object it was, and I hugged my son while our guests applauded. The ceremony that followed was beautiful. Marcus and Rachel exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promising not just to love each other, but to build a life based on kindness, integrity, and service to others. It was everything Thomas would have wanted for our son. At the reception, I found myself standing at the edge of the lake, watching the sun set over the water. Rachel's father, David, came to stand beside me. "That was quite a story your son told," he said. "Yes, it was. Rachel told me more details last night. About the money your husband left you, about how you could have helped Marcus immediately but chose not to. That took remarkable strength. It took remarkable faith in who my son could become. Well, it worked. That young man up there, dancing with my daughter, he's solid. He's genuine. Rachel has a gift for reading people, comes from all her years in pediatric nursing, and she says Marcus is one of the good ones. He is now. He wasn't always," David smiled. "The best people are the ones who had to work to become good. It means they understand what it costs." After the reception, Marcus and Rachel left for a modest honeymoon in Oregon. Nothing like the extravagant European trip he'd planned with Emma. Before they left, Marcus hugged me tight. "Thank you, Mom, for everything. For not giving up on me. I never gave up on you, sweetheart. Even at my angriest, I never stopped loving you. I know. And that's what saved me." In the months that followed, life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Marcus and Rachel bought a house in Ballard with a converted garage apartment that they kept insisting I could use whenever I wanted. I visited often, but I stayed in my loft, the home Thomas and I had built together. The affordable housing program continued to grow. We'd now helped over 50 families, and Marcus had recruited other tech workers to volunteer their time teaching skills to underprivileged kids. I also started a support group for older adults who'd been financially abused by family members. It met weekly at a community center, and I was always struck by how many people had stories similar to mine. The difference was that many of them hadn't had Thomas's foresight or the resources to fight back. "You're so lucky," one woman told me. "My son took everything, and I really did end up in a senior home. I'll never see my house again. I am lucky," I agreed. "But you're strong too, for surviving and for being here today." 1 year after the wedding, Rachel called me with news. "Mom, I'm pregnant. You're going to be a grandmother." Mom. She'd started calling me that a few months after the wedding, and it warmed my heart every time. "That's wonderful news." "Sweetheart, we want to name the baby Thomas if it's a boy, after Marcus's dad. Would that be okay with you?" I couldn't speak for a moment, overcome with emotion. "That would be more than okay. It would be perfect." Baby Thomas was born on a snowy December morning, 8 pounds and 6 ounces, with his father's dark hair and his mother's eyes. When Marcus placed him in my arms at the hospital, I saw Thomas in his tiny face, and I felt the circle completing. "Hi, little one," I whispered. "I'm your grandmother. I've been waiting to meet you." Marcus was crying openly. "Mom, thank you." "For what?" "For giving me the chance to be here for this. If you hadn't stopped me 3 years ago, if you'd just let me keep spiraling, I wouldn't have this. I wouldn't have Rachel, or this baby, or the life we're building. I'd still be chasing unicorns and funding rounds, missing everything that actually matters. You would have figured it out eventually. I don't know if I would have. Some people never learn. But you made sure I did." That night, I sat in my loft with Thomas's watch in my hand, the one Marcus had worked so hard to recover. I wound it carefully, listening to its familiar tick. "We did it, my love," I said to Thomas, wherever he was. Our son is finally the man you knew he could be. And now he's a father himself, teaching his own son the lessons you taught him. The watch ticked steadily, keeping time, marking the moments of a life well lived. 5 years after that phone call at the pharmacy, Marcus threw me a surprise party for my 73rd birthday. It was held at one of the affordable housing buildings we'd converted, in the community room that we'd built specifically for bringing residents together. The room was packed with people, neighbors from my building, teachers who benefited from the housing program, kids Marcus had taught to code, volunteers from the support group I ran, and of course, Rachel and 5-year-old Thomas. Young Thomas ran up to me as soon as I walked in. "Grandma, we made you a birthday cake. I helped. Did you?" "I can't wait to try it." Marcus stood to give a toast. 5 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I tried to steal from my mother, tried to take her home, tried to reduce her entire life to a financial transaction. I was lost, greedy, and blind to everything that actually mattered. He looked around the room. But my mother, instead of just cutting me off or letting me get away with it, did something harder. She let me fail. She let me hit bottom. And then she waited to see if I'd learn anything from the fall. I did learn. I learned that character is more important than success. I learned that family is more valuable than any startup. I learned that the measure of a life isn't in a bank account, but in the people you've helped and the love you've shared. He raised his glass. To Diane Carter, who taught me that real wealth is measured in integrity, in kindness, and in the courage to do what's right, even when it's hard. Mom, everything good in my life started the day you refused to let me take the easy way out. Thank you for loving me enough to let me fail, and for being patient enough to watch me learn. Happy birthday. As everyone cheered and clinked glasses, I felt a hand slip into mine. It was young Thomas, looking up at me with Thomas's eyes. "Grandma, Daddy says you're the smartest person he knows." "Oh, I don't know about that." "Sweetheart." "It's true," Marcus said, coming over with Rachel. "You saw potential in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You knew exactly what I needed, even when I hated you for it." "I never hated you, Marcus. Even at my angriest, all I felt was disappointed. And that's different, I know. And I never want to disappoint you again." Rachel squeezed my other hand. "You won't. We won't. We're building the life you and Thomas always dreamed of for Marcus. A life based on what matters." That night, after everyone had gone home and I was alone in my loft, I opened the metal box one more time. I took out Thomas's letter and read it again, as I did every year on my birthday. "Do what you think is right," he'd written. "I trust you, my love." I had done what I thought was right. I'd let Marcus fail, let him suffer, let him discover who he really was beneath the ambition and greed. And it had worked. Not immediately, not easily, but ultimately it had worked. My son was a good man now, a faithful husband, a loving father, a person who understood that real wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives you touched and the people you loved. I put the letter back in the box and locked it away. I didn't need it anymore. The lesson was learned, the transformation complete. "We did good, Thomas," I whispered to the night. Our boy turned out okay. And somewhere, I imagined Thomas smiling, agreeing, and watching over all of us with the same love and wisdom that had guided us through the darkness to this place of light. My name is Diane Carter. I'm 73 years old. 5 years ago, my son tried to steal my home and leave me with nothing. Today, I have everything that matters. A son who has learned integrity. A daughter-in-law who chose character over comfort. A grandson who will grow up understanding that wealth is measured in love, and the knowledge that Thomas's legacy lives on in all of them. Some people might say I was cruel, letting Marcus struggle when I had the resources to help him. But they would be wrong. The cruelest thing I could have done would have been to rescue him from the consequences of his actions, to teach him that there's always someone who will clean up his mistakes. That character doesn't matter as long as you have money. Instead, I taught him that character is everything. And in doing so, I gave him the only inheritance that truly matters, the knowledge of how to be a good person. If this story moved you, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps me continue sharing stories that uncover the hidden truths of everyday life. There are so many more untold stories waiting to be revealed. Thank you for being here. Now tell me, What would you have done if you were in their place? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share them with me in the comments below. On the screen, you can see 2 more life stories I strongly recommend. There are many more waiting on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story.